I think that the biggest problem that I'm having here is that I simply don't trust Donald Trump. It makes sense to me that we would have to balance cheap goods, because that's what it is when you keep tariffs low, versus strong industry. And you kind of want to make sure that you keep a positive ebb and flow. If we're buying certain antibiotics from other countries, that reduces our creation of them. If there is another crisis, we could have a problem. I hope that things turn out well. If he didn't lie about losing the election, if he didn't lie about Russia, if he didn't lie about Canada, if he didn't lie constantly through his teeth, whether it's a big lie or a small lie, I would be more trusting of him, but I simply can't. There we go,
what's designed
baby.
today to be a major event at the White House. The president is expected to unveil these new tariffs targeting many of America's trade partners. The president's cabinet and Republican leaders are attending the event right there in the Rose Garden. The White House has said the new tariffs will take effect immediately. The administration has given no real indication about the scope of the tariffs before this moment, percentages or the countries being targeted. Just this morning, a senior administration official telling ABC News, quote, "It's still all very fluid." It's believed to be an aggressive plan here, which will include tariffs on some of America's closest allies.
Thank you very much.
Let's listen to the president.
Thank you. Nice crowd. What a good-looking group of people. Well, we have some very, very good news today, and a lot of good things are happening.
Good news today, guys. We're about to get fucked economically. This is some really, really good news today, guys.
Happening for our country. Please sit down.
Yeah, sit down, guys.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. Waiting for a long time.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. I hate to say it, but I kind of almost hope that we tank. It's gonna happen. It's gonna get hit so hard, especially for those MAGA supporters. I hope you guys suffer for your choices here. This is fucking stupid.
April 2nd, 2025 will forever be remembered as the day American industry was reborn, the day America's destiny was reclaimed, and the day that we began to make America wealthy again.
Okay, because we're already not incredibly wealthy. You're right. Yeah.
We're going to make it wealthy, good and wealthy.
Yeah.
For decades, our country has been looted, pillaged, raped, and plundered by nations near
Jesus Christ
and far, both friend and foe alike.
Yeah, like what,
American
Canada?
steel workers, auto workers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen. We have a lot of them here with us today. They really suffered gravely. They watched in anguish as foreign leaders have stolen our jobs, foreign cheaters have ransacked our factories, and foreign scavengers have torn apart our
because we outsource. Isn't that a capitalism problem? You're outsourcing your goods, your goods to other countries because it's cheaper. It makes it cheaper for us to purchase. And then if you don't outsource, they just automate away anyway. So it's not even like we're getting any jobs back. We're still getting fucked.
Beautiful American dream. We had an American dream that you don't hear so much about. You did 4 years ago. And you are now, but you don't too often, for many years
American
and decades
nightmare.
even, you didn't hear too much about. Our country and its taxpayers have been ripped off for more than 50 years, but it is not going to happen anymore.
How? Because there are tariffs? What does it matter? How?
It's not going to happen.
Because we have a deficit? You realize that we have a deficit with Canada? Our trade deficit with Canada is like $60 billion. That's insane. It's insane that that's so low. We have like 10 times the amount of people. On average, a Canadian pays almost $8,800. They buy almost $8,800 a year in American goods. Americans, $1,200 a year on average. Oh, well, there's a deficit. We have like 8 times the amount of people. 40 million people in their country. 340 million people here. Of course, we're going to have a deficit with them. It's just fucking math. It's like these guys don't even know math. Oh, we're getting screwed. How? Oh, there's tariffs on farmers. We have tariffs too. They kick in after a certain amount. There's a 350% tariff. We don't pay it because it's just capped. It's just if we sell them too much so they can protect their dairy industry and their farm industry. Why wouldn't they want to do that? What happens if there's a crisis and they need the farmers to react like that? They can't just go like this. They have to have the materials available, so they have to have a level of their farmers protected. We do the same thing. These people are psychopaths.
In a few moments, I will sign a historic executive order instituting reciprocal tariffs on countries throughout the world. Reciprocal. That means they do it to us and we do it to them. Okay. Very simple. Can't get any simpler than that.
Again, we have tariffs with different countries, but each country is going to protect themselves to a degree. We've always been doing this, but he's not doing like a reasonable degree of protection. He's going to a point beyond reasonable so that he can bully other countries into giving us better trade deals, and all of them at the same time.
This is one of the most important days, in my opinion, in American history. It's our declaration of economic independence. For years, hardworking American citizens.
Why would we want to be economically independent? We have a world economy.
Citizens were forced to sit on the sidelines as other nations got rich and powerful, much of it at our expense.
What?
But now it's our turn
Not
to
true,
prosper,
okay.
and in so doing, use trillions and trillions of dollars to reduce our taxes and pay down our national debt, and it'll all happen very quickly.
Okay.
With today's action, we are finally going to be able to make America great again, greater than ever before.
So true, King. So true.
Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country, and you see it happening already. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers.
Why would we want to do that? Like, how are we going to break down foreign trade barriers if we're like, nobody's going to want to trade with us anymore? What is he talking about?
And ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers.
What? That doesn't even make sense. That's not true. If that were true, we would have already been producing at home. You can have whatever opinion you want on whether we should produce more at home or not. But the reality is that us producing at home in every scenario always increases prices. The reason we sent it out in the first place was to reduce the price. If you want to say, hey, I'd rather produce in America and pay more money for American created goods, that's fine. But he's lying. He's just lying to you. He's not saying, yeah, things are going to go up in price, but you know what? We're going to have more stuff back home. Oh, okay. He's just lying to you. Yeah, it's going to be cheaper. Then why weren't we doing it already? That makes absolutely no fucking sense. If you have to implement a tariff to artificially raise the price of goods from other countries, then obviously creating it in America isn't the most economically viable option. What are you talking about?
This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back. We're going to come back very strongly.
We're coming. We're coming.
We're pleased to be joined on this momentous occasion by Vice President J.D. Vance. J.D., thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Where are you, J.D.? No, that's...
Where's Elon, dude? Did Elon fall out of favor?
That wasn't too hard to find. I was looking, he likes to take a low-key attitude, so usually we sit right in front. He's gaining a lot of confidence, Mike, isn't it? And nearly my entire cabinet is here, as well as Speaker Mike Johnson, who's done an amazing job. And with the great success we had last night in Florida, we have a majority of 7. And 7's like a lot when we had it at 1, right? You've done a fantastic job. And many of the members of the House and Senate are with us. Senators, congressmen, thank you all for being with us. We appreciate it. For decades, the United States slashed our trade barriers on other countries, while those nations placed massive tariffs on our products and created outrageous non-monetary barriers to decimate our industries. And in many cases, the non-monetary barriers were worse than the monetary ones.
I'll give you like an example of the non-monetary barriers he's talking about.
They manipulated their currencies, subsidized their exports, stole our intellectual property.
Well, this might be about specifically China. Like, yes, China does all these things. Sure, if you want to go do a trade war with China, be my guest, but not everybody.
Imposed exorbitant VAT taxes to disadvantage our products. Adopted.
Well, a VAT tax isn't a tariff. God, dude, are you kidding me? So, I'm almost guaranteeing a VAT tax isn't a tariff. Other countries have a value-added tax. It's basically just like a flat tax on buying a good, right? And the idea is it's very difficult for you to fudge, so you have to pay taxes on it. That's like the concept. So they do this in Europe. It's more difficult for businesses to fake it, especially larger businesses. It's a way to try to get those businesses to pay taxes in some capacity. That has nothing to do with a fucking tariff. That's just what they do in their country to collect taxes. So sitting here saying like, oh, they do a VAT tax to punish us. They do a VAT tax for everything in their country. It's just a value-added tax. He's just saying things, and people are like, yeah, this is so true. It's so true. That's not even what a VAT tax is.
Unfair rules and technical standards and created filthy pollution havens. They were absolutely filthy, but they always came to us and they said, we're violating, we should pay for it. It's all detailed in a very big report by the U.S. Trade Representative on foreign trade barriers. And I'll just hold it up for you. It's available and you don't have to pay too much. As I understand it, you'll pay nothing. It's a lot of work. A lot of work for something, actually, because it's a special book. It's very upsetting when you read it, when you see what people have been doing to us for 30 years. This all happened with no response from the United States of America, none whatsoever.
Weren't you president for fucking 4 years? Why didn't you do anything in your first term?
But those days are over. let me offer just a few examples of the vicious attacks our workers have faced for so many years. The United States charges other countries only a 2.4 tariff on motorcycles. Meanwhile, Thailand and others are charging much higher prices, like 60%. India charges 70%. Vietnam charges 75%. And
okay, hold on. Okay, the reason why we have lower motorcycle tariffs is just so that we can encourage more options of motorcycles people want to have, as well as like more complicated trade agreements with other countries. So we keep, one tariff low and have a higher tariff for something else. I don't really understand. Who cares?
And others are even higher than that. Likewise, until today, the United States has for decades charged a 2.5 tariff. Think of that, 2.5% on foreign-made automobiles. Okay. The European Union charges us more than 10% tariffs, and they have 20% VATs, much, much higher. India
VAT taxes for everything.
Charges 70%, and perhaps worst of all are the non-monetary restrictions imposed by South Korea, Japan, and very many other nations as a result of these colossal trade barriers. 81% of the cars in South Korea are made in South Korea. 94% of the cars in Japan are made in Japan. Toyota sells 1 million foreign-made automobiles into the United States, and General Motors sells almost none. Ford sells very little. None of our companies are allowed to go into other countries. And I say that, friend and foe. And in many cases, the friend is worse than the foe in terms of trade. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these other countries at all for this calamity. I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
What? I don't understand. Okay. I mean, does that not just mean that we get less automobile options? So now, like, I have to buy a Ford? Oh, cool. I love capitalism? I don't understand. What? So I'm not really understanding. You're telling me now I have to buy an American-made vehicle, even if it's worse and more expensive? Okay. I mean, hey, you gotta love capitalism, baby. Give me that Ford, baby.
Thank you. Brian, I'd like to have you come up here for a second, okay? I just see him sitting. He's been a fan of ours, and he understands this business a lot better than the economists, a lot better than anybody. Brian, say a few.
He understands the business better than economists? Okay,
yeah. Few words, please, would you? Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor to have you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I grew up just north of Detroit, Michigan, in Macomb County, known as the home of the Reagan Democrats. My first vote for president was for Ronald Reagan. I thought that was going to be the best president I ever saw in my lifetime until Donald J. Trump came along. I have watched my entire life, I have watched plant after plant after plant in Detroit and in the metro Detroit area close. There are now plants sitting idle. There are now plants that are underutilized, and Donald Trump's policies are going to bring product back into those underutilized plants. There's going to be new investment. There's going to be new plants built. And the UAW members, and I brought 20 of them with me. They're sitting right over here. We support Donald Trump's policies on tariffs 100%. So,
that's great. Hey, so do you actually think you're going to get your job back, or what's going on there? Because realistically speaking, the reason why factories are closing, it's two reasons, and becoming underutilized. Just two big reasons there. But one is it's cheaper to produce in other countries. Absolutely. Another is because automation is killing your jobs. So these factories, let's say factories do come back. Let's say we hold these tariffs up for more than a month, if that, because we're about to get economically crippled. Do you really think that you're getting a job? Or do you think that what's been happening to even factories that are open now is that the overwhelming majority of the jobs are going to be automated, and there's going to be very few jobs. And as time goes on, there'll be even fewer jobs as automation gets even better, and you will still be out of a job, because that's what's going to happen, right? This money is, it's nice that the money's coming to America and you're buying from America, even though it's going to be more expensive. So I guess it's not nice, but it's really just going to go to business owners. You're not really going to see a job for longer than maybe a couple of years while they automate the fuck out of the industry. And then what? What did we do for ourselves here? Nothing. It's like you guys are distracted by these like little issues. You don't even really know what the real problem is. Housing is expensive. Healthcare is expensive. Technology is reducing jobs and driving down wages. And nobody offers any real meaningful solution. So, what are you going to do then? I don't know. I mean, we should do something now. You want to tariff anything. You want to tax anything. Tax automation. Jesus Christ. Redistribute that wealth.
Mr. President, we can't thank you enough. And in 6 months or a year, we're going to begin to see the benefits. I can't wait to see what's happening.
In 6 months or a year? 25 guys, just wait 6 months or a year. Pay 25% more for all of your stuff. Just wait 6 months. Don't even worry about it. It's totally easy.
3 or 4 years down the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank God I bought a fucking car last year.
What a great guy. He got it right from the beginning. He got it before almost anybody else. This group over there, they got it too. And, you know, we won the state of Michigan. We won almost all of them. But we won Michigan by a lot, and I want to just thank you all. The auto workers were fantastic. The Teamsters were fantastic.
Okay.
Everyone was pretty good, I will tell you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're going to be very happy very soon. And you probably see what's happening with all of the, not only car companies, but car companies in particular. You see it with all of the ones they're moving. They're announcing day in, day out. You're seeing it. Nobody's ever seen anything like that. With today's actions, we're also standing up for our great farmers and ranchers who are brutalized by nations all over the world. Brutalized.
How are they brutalized? We subsidize our farmers.
Canada, by the way, imposes a 250 to 300% tariff on many of our dairy products.
He just has to stop saying this, because like it's not a full truth. After we buy a certain amount, or excuse me, after they buy a certain amount from us, they will start to tariff it to protect their own farmers. We all have to protect their own farmers. We still sell a significant amount of dairy products to Canada. We sell stuff to them, but they have to protect their dairy farmers. Why? Well, if there's a tragedy or a crisis that happens, they have to have their farmers ready to go. And if you just decide to let your farmers disappear and become completely reliant on the farmers of the United States from a Canada's perspective, you're fucked if there's a crisis that's going on. This is why we decide to protect our farmers. So again, they don't really when he says there's a 250% tariff on dairy, it's partially true, but it's not until we sell a significant amount of product to them. So just to be clear, 33,000 metric tons of cheese, the cheese tax will kick in. 10 million liters of milk before that tax kicks in. And by the way, this is something that Trump negotiated into existence in the first place with his last trade deal with Canada and Mexico. So why did you take it? Why did you do that, bud? If it's so bad, it doesn't make any sense. All right.
Do the first can of milk. They do the first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%. So
the first little carton of milk. 10 million liters of milk later, it gets more expensive. Hey, just that first one. Yeah, that first one is so cheap, but then after 10 million liters, it gets so expensive. That's fucking crazy. Who came up with 10 million liters before they start taxing us? Oh my God, that number's too low. Make it 10 billion liters of milk. 10 trillion. So why stop there? Just make it 10 trillion. Fuck it.
When they're figuring what's Canada charging, they say, oh, about 2%, 3%. But take a look at what happens down the road. When you look a little bit, it's not a pretty picture, and we don't like it, and it's not fair. It's not fair to our farmers. It's not fair to our country.
It is fair.
And with countries like Canada, you know, we subsidize a lot of countries and keep them going and keep them in business. In the case of Mexico, it's $300 billion a year. In the case of Canada, it's close to $200 billion a year.
$200 billion a year of what? Like of trade that we do with that? Why the fuck does that matter? What are you talking about? Canada buys far more from us than we buy from them per person. They buy like 6 times more from us. What are you talking about? What?
And I say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? I mean, at what point do we say, you got to work for yourselves, and you got to, this is why we have the big deficits. This is why we have that amount of debt that's been placed on our heads over the last number of years. And
no, mostly it's because COVID was a global catastrophe. And then also, when you came in before COVID, you just fucking cut taxes instead of actually solving problems and inflated the deficit. That was going down under Obama. What are you talking about?
We're really not taking it anymore.
Holy shit.
Through non-tariff barriers, the European Union bans imports of most American poultry. You understand? They say, we want to send you our cars, we want to send you everything, but we're not going to take anything that you have. Australia bans, and they're wonderful people and wonderful.
What? What's so interesting is I'm just looking at like the general deficits that they have, right? And so there's a lot more people in the EU in total. There's 450 million people versus 340 million in the United States. But the reason we import, we have a trade deficit with the EU for goods. when we buy goods. But the United States is shifting to like a service economy, selling services like healthcare and banking, shit like that. We have a surplus for services. We're transitioning in our economy. We're shifting what our economy does. Contrary to popular belief, there's only so much that you can really do in a country. And so we have shifted towards a more end of the line and services economy. And so that's being reflected in our trade deficits with other countries and our trade surpluses in some instances.
You understand? They say, we want to send you our cars, we want to send you everything, but we're not going to take anything that you have. Australia bans, and they're wonderful people and wonderful everything, but they ban American beef, yet we imported $3 billion of Australian beef from them just last year alone. They won't take any of our beef. They don't want it because they don't want it to affect their farmers. And you know what? I don't blame
Yeah, because they want to protect their farmers in the same way that we protect our farmers. Who cares if they do that?
them, but we're doing the same thing right now.
They also don't ban American beef. So he just lied about that. He just made that up. Okay. He just made that one up. Who the fuck is shocked?
Now, starting about midnight tonight, I would say. And China charges American rice farmers an overquota, it's called, a tariff rate of 65%.
Wait, so the reason is because they have higher standards on their beef than the United States does, and so they're not accepting low-quality beef. Wow, who the fuck would have thought about that? Maybe we should stop poisoning our own people, huh?
South Korea charges 50. Actually, they charge different from 50% to 513%. And Japan, our friend, charges us 700%. But that's because they don't want us selling rice and other thing. Who
the fuck cares? In all honesty, who fucking cares? Who cares about what our trade deficits and our trade surpluses are with other countries? Why does any of this matter? And you're probably like, well, it's not fair. How do you know it's not fair? How do you know the complexities of the trade deals that we make with individual countries all the time? Some of which Trump created. He made the fucking trade deals with the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Literal cum. Canada, United States, Mexico. He made them. Like, it's much more complicated than like, hey, there's a high tariff on beef, and there's a tariff on this, and there's a tariff on that. There is so many different complexities that are going on in these systems that why do these blanket tariffs make any sense to anyone? This is not how you would ever do business. Ever. Never. This doesn't even make sense. And especially with Canada, who they import like 6 times more stuff from us than we do from them. And we're sitting here complaining about a deficit with them. They're like an eighth of our size. It makes no sense. None of this makes sense. It's like we're portraying information in the simplest form for fucking idiots to go like, oh, wait, 50% on this? Wait, 250% on dairy? Oh, well, yeah, after like 10 million liters bought. But we'll ignore that one. We don't understand the complexities of the trade agreement. We don't know how much why we're doing this. Maybe we're getting better trade deals so we can put a fucking military complex in other countries so that we can have more control of the world. I don't know what the specifics are, but to sit here and pretend that we're just getting raked over the coals on every single deal is just a stupid fucking thing to think. The implementation of tariffs are very complicated. And you think that this fucking idiot who just lies about everything is like, you're going to trust this guy? He just lies about everything. Everything that comes out of his fucking mouth is a lie. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're about to get fucked. We're about to get like legitimately fucked. We're about to see some insane inflation here. But like, whatever. I guess you suffer the consequences. Every crybaby bitch in the comments that are always like, "You're just mad about Trump." It's like, yeah, I'm not particularly thrilled with the fact that everything's going to be significantly more expensive. Okay.
Blame them, Madam Secretary. Agriculture, great job you did on eggs, by the way. The egg prices came down 50%.
Yeah, because the bird flu is less impactful now. Great.
You got them down 50%. Once we got involved, they were going through the sky. The egg prices, they were going through.
They went up in his administration. What is he talking about? It's because of a fucking bird flu that nobody could have controlled. Except for the birds and cats, I guess. Eat the flu? I don't know. Okay.
Sky, and you did a fantastic job. Now we have lots of eggs, and they're much cheaper down, about 59% now.
Still more expensive than under Biden, but that's fine.
And they're going down further. We charge 2.8% for so many things that other countries are charging 200%, 300%, and 400%.
I'm sure this is true.
If imposing tariffs and protective barriers made nations poor, then every country on earth would be racing to eliminate these policies, and China would be the first in line. They run a very strong country, but they're not first in line, and the American people are paying a very big price from 1789 to 1913, we were a tariff-backed nation, and the United States was proportionately the wealthiest it has ever been. So wealthy, in fact, that in the 1880s, they established a commission to decide what they were going to do with the vast sums of money they were collecting. We were collecting so much money so fast, we didn't know what to do with it.
The 1880s? You mean before worker rights and worker protections and freedoms for all people? 1880s? What the fuck do I care about the 1880s for? Back when like you could work somebody for 15 hours a day? That 1880s? Oh, wow. Let me reference that time. That's great. What the fuck is he talking about? What the fuck?
Isn't that a nice problem to have? What do you think, Marco? Good problem? Marco would love that problem. But we don't have that problem anymore, but we're not going to have it very much longer, I will tell you. But they collected so much money.
It wasn't until 1938 that they capped the work week to 44 hours. Oh, I wonder why we were so rich in the 1800s. Oh, could it be because you could throw human bodies at something until it was created? Yeah, you want to know why we're getting poorer? Because we care about our people more every day. Oh, we're getting so poor. Poor. Fuck you. As if we're even getting poor. The fuck are you talking about?
They actually formed a commission to determine what they were going to do with the money, who they were going to give it to, and how much. Then
it wasn't the workers, just to be clear.
In 1913, for reasons unknown to mankind, they established the income tax so that citizens, rather than foreign countries, would start paying the money necessary to run our government.
You have no idea why we would implement an income tax. You give $8 million of government subsidies to Elon Musk every single day. You don't know why we do that? We have healthcare. Well, maybe not healthcare. We have education, roads, bridges, highways, government officials and workers, police officers, firefighters. You don't know why we have an income tax? You couldn't think of a reason why we have income tax? I don't know. Maybe it's for all those things that we have. No, it's not those things. We're just for fun. We just fuck around. What the fuck are you talking about? Social Security? Welfare systems that pulled us out of the Great Depression? That keep poor people and old people from dying on the streets like dogs? You have no idea why we have an income tax? Yeah, you're right. Stupid. By the way, taxes aren't even a problem. The problem is how expensive houses are. Healthcare is. Where's your policy on getting BlackRock to stop buying up a bunch of houses and then fucking renting them for extraordinary amounts of money? Where's that? Why instead of doing whatever idiot bullshit this is, why aren't you subsidizing the cost of houses like Kamala Harris wanted to? Where she wanted to give first-time homebuyers a $25,000 tax credit. Why aren't you giving the first down payment on a first-time buyer for their houses? Do that. No, we got to cut taxes instead of cutting. If your place of living was $1,000 cheaper a month because it was more fair, you think that you'd be complaining as much about taxes? No, probably not. No, we wouldn't really be doing that. But we got to be distracted. So we have to do this. We have to play this fucking idiot game. Got to be distracted, baby. Incredible.
Then in 1929, it all came to a very abrupt end with the Great Depression, and it would have never happened if they had stayed with the tariff policy. It would have been a much different story.
You're an idiot.
Tried to bring back tariffs to save our country, but it was gone. It was gone. It was too late. Nothing could have been done. It took years and years to get out of that depression, far longer than even FDR.
And why? And what got us out of that depression? Oh yeah, taxes. Social Security got us out of the depression. Welfare got us out of the depression. All things that he wants to cut got us out of the depression. Well, it took us years. Taxes got us out of the depression. What the fuck are you talking about? Not letting homeless people die or old people die on the street got us out of the depression. It's fucking interesting how you forgot about that one.
It's right over there for a long period of time. The ramp system, that's rather intricate, was built because of him, and every time you walk up, you think of him, and he did a great job in many ways, but it lasted long beyond his terms, as you know. But it's not too late any longer, and we're going to start being smart, and we're going to start being very wealthy again. We're going to be wealthy as a country because they've taken so much of our wealth away from us. We're not going to let that happen. We truly can be very wealthy. We can be so much wealthier than any country. It's not even believable, but we're getting smart. Nearly a century later, in the face of unrelenting economic warfare, the United States can no longer continue with a policy of unilateral economic surrender. We cannot pay the deficits of Canada, Mexico, and so many other countries. We used to do it. We can't do it.
Yes, we can. We still can. And again, I don't understand this obsession with Canada because they have a fraction of our population and they buy significantly more per capita than we do from us. They buy like $8,000 worth of products from us every year per person. We buy like $1,200. Oh, we have a deficit with them. Oh, really? That's crazy. Do we know how math works? Yes. $60 billion. It should be a lot higher. They're a much smaller country. We're a much bigger country. You think we would buy even more from them per person. We don't. We buy actually significantly low amounts from them comparative to the size. They spend like 6 times more per person per year on goods and services from us. But, you know, Trump leaves that detail out because he just looks at raw numbers and he presents them to you like jingling keys because apparently you're all fucking stupid. If you believe him, you are. But okay, cool stuff, man.
Do it anymore. We take care of countries all over the world. We pay for their military. We pay for everything they have to pay. And then when you want to cut back a little bit, they get upset that you're not taking care of them any longer. But we have to take care of our people, and we're going to take care of our people first. And I'm sorry to say that.
Why are you sorry to say that?
And today we're standing up for the American worker, and we are finally putting America first.
Oh, yeah? You're going to tax technologies so that you would incentivize them to hire actual people or to redistribute that wealth to people instead of just automating the job away? Is that what you're doing? Or are you just going to do a tariff?
In Sleepy Joe Biden's last year in office, the United States hemorrhaged 100,000 manufacturing jobs, and the number was going through the roof at levels never seen before.
All right, so the estimation is closer to 70 to 80,000. We gained 800,000 manufacturing jobs from Biden. Then again, part of that was like just coming back from COVID. But the reason is because we had to fight inflation, okay? How do you fight inflation? You have to keep interest rates higher. Right? You try to take money out of the market or not increase the amount of money in the market, right? You have a higher interest rate. It decentivizes you from, taking out loans, which reduces the amount of additional money going into the economy, which will generally lower the interest rate, lower the deficit. What the fuck am I saying? Lower inflation. Holy fuck. And so that's why. And so with that increase, there's less money being taken out. That creates less jobs, obviously. It's a very delicate system. Sure. Okay, I don't necessarily see you can't just infinitely create more and more jobs.
The number was going through the roof at levels never seen before.
But that's not
and our
true.
trade deficit reached a record $1.2 trillion, which is unheard of. Since the beginning of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made. It was a horror show. I was able to terminate it. They all said you'd never be able to get it out. We had to get approval from Congress to get it terminated. We had to live with that deal. It was the worst trade deal ever made by far.
Yeah, but you've been complaining about the new trade deal that you made being terrible. So what the fuck are you talking about? What is he saying? Yeah, so we did have a $1.2 trillion overall deficit. I'm just looking into why exactly. A big factor is because the American dollar is so strong. People have the ability to buy from other countries with the powerful American dollar. People in America like consumerism. We have a lot of money. We like to purchase dumb bullshit. Other countries have a weaker dollar, so our dollar converts very well. And so we're buying a bunch of shit, specifically from China, Mexico, Vietnam, a lot of Asian countries, because they make cheap electronics and shit like that. They make off-brand earbuds and a bunch of other cheap shit that you like to buy. TikTok Shop, frankly, is probably a massive, and I mean a massive motivator as to why people are spending so much money on these other countries. Because what does TikTok sell? It sells cheap shit off of AliExpress and Temu. People love consuming cheap shit. So should we get our imports up? Of course. But why are we buying so much? Why are we doing so much imports to America? Why are we buying so much? Because you guys like cheap shit all the time. You guys purchase cheap shit. We purchase cheap shit. I purchase cheap shit. We purchase cheap shit constantly. So we should try to figure out a way to export more. Sure, I agree with that. But I mean, we're doing so the fact that we do so much importing is because we buy cheap shit from other countries because we love having unnecessary garbage in our house. That is really what it is.
But since the very beginning of NAFTA, our country lost 90,000 factories. Think of what that is, 90,000. Think about putting a map up and putting text on it. You wouldn't have enough room. 90,000. I said, is that possible? We had it checked 4 different times, and it was actually somewhat higher than that.
Okay, that doesn't mean that's because of the trade agreement. It might have a lot to do with the fact that technology is killing jobs.
And 5 million manufacturing jobs were lost while racking up trade deficits of $19 trillion. That was the worst trade deal ever made as a result of.
Yeah, I'm just looking into the specifics of it. Not all of it has to do with NAFTA. It's weird that he's generally seems to be pinning it onto NAFTA. But yeah, sure. I mean, part of it too is that we have bigger factories. Like our bigger factories aren't closing down nearly to the degree that smaller factories are closing down. With more efficient factory production because of technology, you're obviously going to be able to shut down smaller factories in other areas, especially if you have better like roadway infrastructures to deliver particular goods and services or goods to.
Of these gigantic losses, foreign nations now own $26 trillion more of American assets than think of this, than the Americans own of their own foreign assets or other foreign assets. The United States can no longer produce enough antibiotics to treat our sick.
What? Yeah, it's just, we just import these to make them cheaper. What's so funny is that these things are so expensive still, even though we're importing them from other countries. I wonder if that has to do with greedy corporations taking too much of the money. I guess we could if we wanted to, but we outsource it because it's cheaper. Okay.
We have a tremendous problem. We have to go to foreign countries to treat our sick. If anything ever happened from a war standpoint, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay, I guess we still do some in America. You could subsidize those factories if you really wanted to do that. I guess this is one way to do it. Increase the prices of healthcare. Yeah, that's a good idea.
We import virtually all of our computers, phones, televisions, and electronics. We used to dominate the field, and now we import it all from different countries. A single shipyard in China now
it's a good thing that Biden implemented the CHIPS Act to do some more of that creation here.
Produces more ships every year than all of the American shipyards combined. Think of that. And it was a business that we used to dominate. We used to dominate it totally. In short, chronic trade deficits are no longer merely an economic problem. They're a national emergency that threatens our security and our very way of life. It's a very great threat to our country. And for these reasons, starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened.
Well, you didn't think about it in your first presidency, so.
Nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating. And because we are being very kind, we're kind people, very kind. You're not so kind when you get ripped off for your salaries. My auto worker friends and my Teamster friends and all of the unions that typically voted Democrat, they're not voting Democrat anymore because...
I don't know, man. You know what? We'll see how it goes. Maybe, and you know what? Hopefully, I'm wrong. And this will actually be great for the country. Artificially inflating the price of all goods and services so we can produce more at home. Maybe this will actually turn out well. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it'll cause better trade deals with other countries. Maybe I'm hoping I'm wrong. Maybe we'll all learn that Donald Trump actually knows something that we don't. And maybe it'll save the country from what? I don't know. Brown people? I don't fucking know. I think that according to his voter base. I have no idea. But yeah, let's hope.
Because worker, whether union or non-worker, they're for the Republicans now. That's what happened. But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that, yes, but it would have been tough for a lot of countries who didn't want to do that. I'd like to see the chart if you have it. Could you bring it up, Howard? This is our great Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thank you. So if you look at that, China, first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So 67%, I think you can, for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to bring, it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be because we never charge anybody anything, but now we're going to charge. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You know, you think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half. Vietnam, great negotiators, great people. They like me, I like them. The problem is they charge us 90%. We're going to charge them 46% tariff. Taiwan, where they took all of our computer chips and semiconductors. We used to be the king, right? We were everything. We had all of it. Now we have almost none of it, except the biggest company is coming in. We're going to end up with almost 40%. Lee Zeldin's working to get their approvals.
Yeah, that's because of Biden's CHIPS Act, just so you guys know. Trump's just going to take credit for things he didn't do.
And it's an amazing company, Mr. Wei, of one of the great companies of the world, actually. They're coming in from Taiwan, and they're going to build one of the biggest plants in the world, maybe the biggest for that. But 64%, we're going to charge them 32%. Japan, very, very tough, great people. And again, I don't blame the people for doing it. I think they're very smart to do it. I blame the people that sat right in that Oval Office, right over there, right behind the Resolute desk, or whichever desk they chose. Japan, 46%. They would charge us 46%, and much higher for certain items like cars, little items like cars. 46%, we're charging them 24%. India, very, very tough, very, very tough. The Prime Minister just left. He's a great friend of mine, but I said, you're a friend of mine, but you're not treating us right. They charge us 52%. You have to understand, we charge them almost nothing for years and years and decades. And it was only 7 years ago when I came in, we started with China charging. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China in tariffs. And they understood, honestly. President Xi understood. He said, look, I understand. And the other countries, and they all understand. We're going to have to go through a little tough love, maybe, but they all understand. They're ripping us off, and they understood it. Okay. Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. He was a fantastic man. He was unfortunately taken from us, assassination. But I went to him and I said, Shinzo, we have to do something. Trade is not fair. He said, I know that. And he was a great gentleman. He was a fantastic man. But He understood immediately what I was talking about. I said, Shinzo, we have to do something. He said, I know that. And we worked out a deal, and it would have been a much better deal. But frankly, there were many years left in the deal that was made previous to my getting there. But it was something. If you look at Switzerland, 61% to 31%. Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia. Oh, look at Cambodia, 97%. We're going to bring it down to 49. They made a fortune with the United States of America. United Kingdom, 10%. And we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing. South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it. Brazil, 10%, 10%. Bangladesh is 74%. So you see what's going on. Pakistan, 58%. Sri Lanka, 88%. So what we're doing is we're taking, not the full, we can take the full 88%. Thanks a lot. He's doing a very good job. How's he doing, all right? I think you better take it with you. It's not going to last very long. He's going to put it, it's going to follow you down with the wind. I brought a hat just in case it got too windy, but here, would anybody like a hat? I'm not giving it to a cabinet. I'm giving it to the auto workers. Come here. Thank you, fellas. Get it. That's it. That's it. They deserve it more than our cabinet. Our cabinet has plenty of hats. But you see the numbers. The numbers are so disproportionate. They're so unfair. At the same time, we will establish a minimum baseline tariff of 10%. You notice that on the chart? And that'll be on other countries to help rebuild our economy and to prevent cheating. So we're going to have a minimum of cheating, and we're going to be very severe on the people that at the gate that watch the tariffs and watch the product coming in, because there's been a lot of bad things happening at the gate because the money is so enormous that you're talking about. There's never been probably anything like it in terms of the enormity, and there are a lot of bad things happen at the people that do the check-in, and they're looking at 10-year jail sentences if they do. We're going to treat them so good, but if they cheat, the repercussions are going to be extremely strong. Foreign nations will finally be asked to pay for the privilege of access to our market, the biggest market in the world. We're right now the biggest market in the world. We had a great country 4 years ago in terms of the economics. We were doubling up on China. We were doing so well. Nobody was going to catch us, but so much of it slipped away over the last 4 years under Biden. I campaigned on this policy throughout last year, and today that promise was made, and it was also a promise, as you know, that was kept. Promises made, promises kept. To any company that objects to our common sense reciprocal tariffs, again, reciprocal, back and forth, and I call this kind reciprocal. This is not full reciprocal. This is kind reciprocal. But what we do is we cut it in half. We charge them. My answer is very simple. If they complain, if you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America. And we've seen companies coming in like we've never seen before. Likewise, all of the foreign presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, ambassadors, and everyone else who will soon be calling to ask for exemptions from these tariffs. I say, terminate your own tariffs, drop your barriers, don't manipulate your currencies. They manipulate their currencies like nobody can even believe, which is a bad, bad thing and very devastating to us, and start buying tens of billions of dollars of American goods. Tariffs give our country protection against those that would do us economic harm, and many people were looking to do us economic harm. Maybe not so obviously, but they were doing tremendous economic harm. But even more importantly, they will give us growth. These tariffs are going to give us growth like you haven't seen before, and it'll be something very special to watch. I'm so looking forward, and Brian, it's going to happen even faster than you said. You know, you might say, but it's already started. It's already started. Work's already begun in plants all around the country, and you see that it's before. These are big, rich companies. We have $61 billion started on a big plant going up. It's going to be announced over the next 2 days, and they already started work. Many of these the biggest companies in the world, they've committed to build. We're going to build, sir. And they came.
I think that the biggest problem that I'm having here is that I simply don't trust Donald Trump. I think that's the biggest problem. It makes sense to me that we would have to balance cheap goods, because that's what it is. When you keep tariffs low, the American consumer is able to buy cheap goods versus strong industry, right? And you kind of want to make sure that you keep a positive ebb and flow. I don't think that any economists are sounding the alarm that we're in a horrific spot right now, but I get it. You know, if we're buying certain antibiotics from other countries, and that reduces our creation of them, if there is another crisis, we could have a problem. During COVID, we weren't producing enough, I think it was masks, to be able to handle that infrastructure. We had to switch over factories. It took a while. There was a negative. And so I can appreciate trying to maintain a strong industries in general. I would say we should leave Canada and Mexico alone for the most part, because, you know, they're right next to us. These should be our most strongest and people that we can rely on the most. But I just don't trust this guy. I don't. I can't trust somebody who's constantly lying. I hope that things turn out well. You know, maybe this will be a positive step. It seems incredibly drastic to do so much at once. So I'm honestly expecting it to be pretty destructive for, you know, the middle class American, especially since houses are so expensive. We don't exactly have a ton of, you know, extra spending cash, I would say. But that's my problem. If Trump was somebody that I could trust, if Trump didn't lie about the amount of money we gave to Ukraine and to bully Ukraine to end the war, if Trump didn't, you know, lie about so many different things, if he didn't lie about losing the election, if he didn't lie about Russia, if he didn't lie about Canada, if he didn't lie constantly through his teeth, whether it's a big lie or a small lie, I would be more trusting of him, but I simply can't. It's just impossible for me to trust somebody. And I feel like that's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable for me to say, like, oh yeah, the guy who constantly lies is not somebody I could trust. And I think that if you do trust him, you're probably kind of fucking dumb. So, incredible skepticism. I appreciate the fundamentals of what he was saying he wants to do, but I just don't trust him. I'm fucking nervous about it. Honestly.
Came here to see me, and they wanted to know they could have a press conference. I do as many as I can. I'm pretty busy trying to stop Russia and Ukraine and the Middle East. We got to stop that. We're going to stop the Houthis, which we're making tremendous. They like shooting ships down and out of the water, sinking ships. They get a kick out of it, but they're not getting such a kick out of it now, are they, Mr. Secretary? They're not getting such a kick out of that now. But here's just a short list of some of the companies that have already announced and committed to investment. And this is a company that built its factories and its plants in China. Apple is going to spend $500 billion. They never spent money like that here. They're going to build their plants.
A lot of the, just to be clear, a lot of these tech positions that they're taking are because of Biden's CHIPS Act. But
here, SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, great companies, are investing $500 billion almost immediately. NVIDIA, a hot company, is investing hundreds of billions of dollars. They just announced TSMC, the biggest, most important company in the world of chips from Taiwan, with no investment from us, is investing $200 billion. And they said the reason was, number one, the election of November 5th, and number two, the tariffs. They don't want to pay the tariffs. And the way
yeah, well, really, it's the CHIPS Act, but
not paying it is to build their plant here. So we're going to go from almost no percentage. We used to have 100% of the chip market. Now it's all in Taiwan. Almost all of it's in Taiwan. A couple of other countries, but mostly in Taiwan. And think of it, we had 100%. We lost it because of people in that office that didn't do their job. They allowed it to be stolen from us. Johnson & Johnson, great company, $55 billion. Eli Lilly, $27 billion. Meta is investing $500 billion. Wow. DeMac is investing $20 billion. CMA, CGM, $20 billion. And then you have Merck and Clarios, Stellantis, General Motors, GE Aerospace, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai are all putting in billions and billions of dollars, and they're committed 100%. So. And we've never had, and this is after 2.5 months. This is after just a short, this all took place as soon as we came out with what everybody wanted to do. I watched a gentleman today on television. He used to work with Lee Iacocca, a very respected automobile person, and he said, because they're asking people, they try and get as many negative people as they can, but they can't find them too much. It's pretty hard to find in terms of what we're doing, especially when they see all this investment. They said, so tell me, what do you think of what Trump is doing from the automobile standpoint? He said, I can't believe it. Somebody is finally, he's an older guy, real pro, really top guy, with Lee Iacocca. He said, I never thought I'd see the day when this would happen, where somebody had the courage to go and do what has to be done. This is transforming our nation. Our entire nation is going to be transformed, not only with the cars, but on every single other item that's built. We're going to become an industrial powerhouse. And he said that so beautifully today. In fact, I'm going to find out, I'm going to get a tape, and Bruce, I'm going to get that tape, and I'm going to send it to you out in Long Island, and you're going to play it for the people, and all your union workers and your non-union workers out there. You got a pretty even split. But we have, so far, it looks like we're going to have about $6 trillion of investments, and you wouldn't do that in years in this country over the last number of years. $6 trillion, and that's going to be much higher by the end of the year. And think of what $6 trillion is. You wouldn't have even a small percentage of that under this other system. We're going to be an entirely different country, and it's going to be fantastic for the workers. It's going to be fantastic for everyone. There will never have been a transformation of a country like the transformation that's already happening in the United States of America. It's an incredible thing to watch, and it's incredible to meet with the top people that you read about, very wealthy people, or people that are great managers and executives and presidents of big public companies, and to watch the enthusiasm they have now that they didn't have. They gave up on our country. They went to foreign countries, and they built. Companies are pouring into our country at levels never seen before, with jobs and money to follow, and it's really beautiful. In the coming days, there will be complaints from the globalists and the outsourcers and special interests and the fake news. Always, the fake news will always complain. But never forget, every prediction our opponents made about trade for the last 30 years has been proven totally wrong. They were wrong about NAFTA. They were wrong about China. They were wrong about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a disaster if I didn't terminate it. If I didn't terminate that, United Auto Workers, you would have had no jobs in this country. You would have had no jobs. It was all going to other countries. In my first term, they said tariffs would crash the economy. Instead, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. And again, I have great respect for President Xi of China, great respect for China, but they were taking tremendous advantage of them.
Who said that? In his first term, he only went into a trade war with China. Who cares? That was like the most normal thing he could have possibly done. It wasn't even a big deal. Nobody really complained about it. I didn't. It was like a normal policy to trade war with just China, not fucking everybody at the same time. That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's one, like do one at a time.
Of us, and I commend them for that. I say, hey, if you can get away with it, that's okay. But they understand exactly what's happening, and they probably, most of them are saying it's about time they did something. But and they're going to fight. And they're going to fight fair. Everyone's going to fight. It's like I say to the leaders, look, you got to take care of your country, but we have to start taking care of our country now. We can't do what we've been doing for the last 50 years. From the day of my election, the stock market went up in my first term 88%, with Nasdaq going up 155%, more than any president has ever had in any term in office by far. And I think we're going to blow that away. And maybe the numbers won't show, but I think they're going to show much better than even those numbers. But what you're going to see is you're going to see activity, that empty, dead sites, factories that are falling down. Those factories will be knocked down, and they're going to have brand new factories built in their place. They're not only talking about renovating, they're talking about brand new, the best anywhere in the world, the biggest anywhere in the world. I have a friend who builds car plants, and I said, I want to see the biggest and the best. He said, well, we have to go to Mexico. I said, no, I want to see it in the United States. He said, we're not building them in there. This is a year and a half ago during the campaign. He said, we're not building it. You have to go to Mexico. When I was starting to decide to run, and I went to number one in the polls very rapidly, I want to say, let's say in the first hour. And then shortly thereafter, it looked like I was going to win, and the fake news was saying, oh, no, don't do this. What they don't know is if I didn't win, they would have really been in trouble, because nobody wants to read them anyway. But I tell you what, when it looked like I was going to win, I announced that I was going to be doing exactly what we're talking about today. Great consistency, actually, because I've been talking about it for 40 years, but because I saw what was happening 40 years ago. If you look at my old speeches when I was young, very handsome, my old speeches, and people would say I'd be on a television show, I'd be talking about how we were being ripped off by these countries. I mean, nothing changes very much. The only thing that changed were the countries, but nothing really changes. But
all right, let's just listen to ramble
about how we were being ripped off by these countries. I mean, nothing changes very much. The only thing that changed were the countries, but nothing really changes. But it's why it's such an honor. It's such an honor to be finally able to do this. If you look at China, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in my term, hundreds of billions. They never paid 10 cents to any other president, and yet they paid hundreds of billions, so much so that Biden couldn't do anything. They wanted to try and terminate it. because he had a very special relationship with China. You know what the relationship was? He had a special relationship. But the numbers were...
I don't know. Was it as special as your relationship with Russia or like what?
So big. The numbers were so big that they couldn't do it. So they did ease it up. They did things that they shouldn't have done. They made it a lot more comfortable for them, but they couldn't do it because the numbers were hundreds of billions of dollars, and I did that. And we were on our way to doing something like incredible. And then we had a very bad election happen, a very bad election. A lot of bad things happened. So when I said we're going to do it again, I said we have to make it too big to rig, and we made it too big to rig, and we won in records, and it was a monumental win. And it was such an honor to see so many of you, like Brian and your friends, here with us to celebrate, and to more importantly celebrate what we're doing, because that wouldn't be a full celebration if we didn't do this, because this will be an entirely different country in a short period of time. It'll be something the whole world will be talking about. The critics made the very tired predictions earlier this year, but in February, core inflation dropped to the lowest rate in 4 years, and the price of eggs, as you know, just in a month and a half, we were there for 4 weeks. And the first week, I got blamed for eggs. I said, I just got here. They said eggs have gone up at like 250%, and you can't get eggs. And they were going crazy. And I said, I just got here. And then we got...
Well, I mean, he did say that he was going to lower the price on day one, no? So wouldn't that be why people felt like a little frustrated by that? No?
To work on eggs. We got to work on everything. And our great Secretary of Agriculture, you did a fantastic job. Brooke Rollins, she did a fantastic job. And as I said before, the price of eggs dropped now 59%, and they're going down more, and the availability is fantastic. They were saying that for Easter, please don't use eggs. Could you use plastic eggs? I said, we don't want to do that. We want to, and you really came through. It's an amazing job. Thank you very much. Okay. You did great. But likewise, an old-fashioned term that we use, groceries. I use it on the campaign. It's such an old-fashioned term, but a beautiful term, groceries. So it says a bag with different things in it. Groceries went through the roof, and I campaigned on that. I talked about the word groceries for a lot, and energy costs now are down. Groceries are down. Gasoline is way under $3, and people are beginning to be able to buy things and live again. We brought prices way down. We created 10,000 already in a few weeks, new manufacturing.
And you're thinking that these tariffs are going to like continue that, or like how does that work? You don't really get to have it both ways. This is one of the problems with when it comes to listening to Trump talk about this, is that on the one hand, he keeps moaning on and on and on about how things are going to be cheaper, and they're not. They're going to be more expensive. And that can be okay. It can be okay. If you want to listen to the president say, like, things are going to be more expensive, but we're going to start creating more stuff here, especially since, let's say that there's an emergency. We want to be able to produce medication to the degree that we need to be able to produce it. Like during COVID, we needed to be able to produce, have factories to produce certain things that we didn't have the infrastructure for. That's fine. But you don't get to say that things are going to be cheaper and we're going to start implementing tariffs, which are going to make things more expensive. It is simply a fabrication to pretend that things are going to be cheaper with tariffs. They're not. The whole idea is to artificially raise the price of goods coming into the country so you're more incentivized to buy locally. And that's fine, but just be honest. And this is why I don't trust him, because he can't be honest. Everything has to be some form of a lie, because he knows better. That's the problem.
Jobs, and it was that took place in 1 month, numbers that they haven't seen in a long time. We had virtually no inflation under my term. We had virtually no inflation for 4 years, but after transitioning over to Sleepy Joe, it went from almost non-existent to the highest in the history of our country. We had the highest inflation.
Yeah, you think that has something to do with COVID? You think that maybe COVID had a little impact on that when you have to shut down global pipelines because of how horrific how horrific it was? Like, you think that's going to have that shuts down supply lines. It's more difficult to produce things when you have to shut things down because, a deadly fucking illness that is globally impacting. And if it was a conspiracy, not a single country. Why is every single country in tandem been like, yeah, this is real? So, the country, manufacturing pipelines were shut down because of COVID. And then Biden gave out a bunch of stimulus, which, what does that do? Now we have increased demand because you have more money and very low supply because you don't have particularly robust pipelines. And you can sit here and criticize Biden for that. Absolutely. But then we came out of COVID the strongest than any other country really did, especially our Western allies. And so while, him pumping a bunch of money into the economy had a negative impact of the higher inflation, it seemed to also be good because it got us out of, or we had the least economic impact onto our country than any of our other Western allies, or most other countries in the world in general. So, kind of have to take this ebb and flow and this understanding of what's going on. I don't think Biden's policies that coming out of COVID were that bad.
The history of our country, brought up by energy and bad spending and bad policy, and a lot of bad things happened. How about allowing millions and millions and millions of people to pour into our country with open borders, where
once again, it's not true. I mean, it's just people wanted to come in after a backlog. He could have done more, but again, there was a bill that was proposed under Biden by conservatives that Trump pressured them to shut down so he could run on the border. That would have done a lot of help for the United States, but we decided not to do that.
So sad to see even now, and I see our great secretary of You Have Done. Stand up, please, Christy. Stand up. Christy Noem and Tom Homan. These people are doing a great job, but gotten them out in records. We have problems with judges that don't want them to go out. They want Tren d'Iraqua.
Well, what about those people that were American citizens that got knocked out of the country, or like that you didn't verify? Like, it's so silly, you know, especially since people think that there shouldn't be due process for illegal immigrants. We don't know if they're illegal. You know, there's people who were kicked out of the country that were American citizens, that were promised protection to stay here, that never should have been kicked out. And we just did it. Why? Well, we didn't give due process to illegals. Well, I mean, like, that's the only way you would know if they're illegal or not, is if you gave them due process. How are you supposed to prove that you're a citizen of the United States if you don't get the due process to prove that you're a citizen of the United States? So you kick a bunch of people out of the country without verifying if they are or are not citizens, and then American citizens get fucked because you didn't give due process to illegals, illegal immigrants. But again, how could they possibly prove they weren't illegal? You didn't give them due process. It's ridiculous. So while the majority of them might have been MS-13 gang members, I don't really know because they are completely non-transparent. I guess they're only transparent when it comes to, you know, leaking signal chats. Some of them were American citizens, and it could have been any of you or me. So why wouldn't you want to advocate for that? It doesn't make sense.
And they want MS-13, the most vicious gangs ever. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Absolute killer gangs. They kill people. They don't even think about it. And we put them out. And we have judges now, radical left judges that they don't want them to go out. They want them to even be brought back. Let's bring them back. You've done a fantastic job, and please thank everybody. Homeland Security, thank everybody. Appreciate it. And we now have a border that's the best border that we've ever had, even better than it was my first term. My first term we did good, but this one we really specialized in. We've done really well. And we had records then. We had the best, safest border 4 years ago. We had the best border there ever was. And now we have, you've actually matched it and done even better. And we're going to get it down the right way. And we want people, by the way, to come into our country, but we want them to come in through a legal process. We want them to come in legally. We need more people. We need people to run these plants and to help the auto workers and the Teamsters and the non-union people and everybody else. But we need people and the farmers. And we're going to let people come in, but they want to come in. We want them to come in legally. They have to have the capability of loving our country, not people that hate our country. We don't want them in our country. And now we're going to pass the largest tax cuts in American history. And that's where we're relying on Mike and John Thune. And we will not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid benefits. And the Democrats will, because if they got in, the entire economy would collapse. This country was heading for...
What the hell are you talking about? You guys are fabricating. This is the problem with what he's saying is a lot of different things. One, they've already they want to cut like $800 billion in HHS, which is the majority is Medicare and Medicaid over 10 years. Where do you think it's coming from? They're pushing conspiracy theories that Social Security is being given out to people that are 200 years old. Not even close to true. Not a single person that's dead is getting Social Security. Okay? Or if there is, it's not widespread to the degree that like millions of people are getting it. No. It's simply people that are they're on the list, but they're not getting paid. This is just a fact. I think that I think that once you turn 115, it instantly stops your payments anyway. And so, like, you're sitting here lying about people taking over Social Security or lying about people still being on Social Security that are dead, while Elon Musk calls it a Ponzi scheme, and he's in control of DOJ, which is supposed to find, you know, waste, fraud, and abuse, even though they fired inspector generals, which actually find that stuff. And you're telling us you're not going to touch Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. What are you talking about? Then why are you pushing conspiracy theories about how ineffective it is? It seems to me that you guys do want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but okay.
For a collapse under the people that you saw. They were horrible. I think one of the reasons people like the job, I have my highest approval ratings because I think they're comparing me to the worst administration in the history of our country. So I appreciate that at least.
You still going on?
But Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and Senate Majority Leader, appreciate it, Mike. John Thune have been fantastic, by the way. But they've been working tirelessly on taking the next step to pass the plan for our one big, beautiful bill. I'd like to name it that if you can. I made that statement about 6 months ago, and everybody calls it one big, beautiful bill. And it will be that. It'll have everything, the big tax cuts and every incentive there is. And it'll be fantastic. And by the way, for the cars, we're asking for an interest deduction on a loan. So if you build the car, only in America we do it, Brian. If the car's not built in America, you don't get the interest rate deduction. But if you build the car in America, if you buy a car, if it's built in America, then you get an interest rate deduction, tax deduction, and that's a big thing. That's going to be a big thing. I think that's going to pay for itself very quickly. That deduction never happened. We've never had anything like that before. Somebody said, where do you get the idea? Because it's so basic. You would think that would have happened a long time ago. It never did, and I'm very happy it didn't because now I can say that was my idea. But we're going to get us closer to the debt extension. We have to get the debt extension passed, and I know you're going to be able to do that, Mike, and it's very important that you do that. And all of the other things that the Senate budget plan gives us, along with working, because I know they're working together, John and Mike, and the two bills are going very well together. We need to get our shared priorities done, including certain permanent tax cuts. We want the tax cuts to be permanent, spending cuts, energy, and historic investments in defense, border, and so much more. We're covering everything. These will be phenomenal. There'll be no bill like this. Going to straighten one bill is going to straighten out our country for many, many years to come. And we said, let's just do it and let's get it done. And some guys will love it, and some guys will like it a little bit less because they're not getting what they were exactly looking for, but they're getting a lot. They'll never, if we get this done, it'll be the most incredible bill ever passed in the history of our country. Congress and Senate and congressmen, the senators and the congressmen, many of whom are here today, will be very proud of themselves. I really believe that it's going to set us on a whole new prosperous path. We're going to cut spending and right-size the budget back to where it should be. We're going to do that very strongly. Okay. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, John. Thank you. Oh, look at all of our senators. Oh, boy, that's a nice group of people. But I won't like them so much if they don't get this bill done. That's a great group. And Congressman, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Tremendous people. The Senate plan is my complete and total support. And the House plan, likewise, is very similar. They're moving along pretty much at the same clip. And as soon as you're ready, you'll show it to me. And I'm sure it'll have my support, Mike. Every Republican congressman and senator must unify. We have to unify. We can't be separated. We have to get it done. We have to get absolutely everything we can. And we have to take care of the American people. That's the only thing that matters. We have to take care of the American people first. We need to pass this bill immediately. Get it done, including debt extension. From this day on, we're not going to let anyone tell us that American workers and families cannot have the future that they deserve. We're going to produce the cars and ships, chips, airplanes, minerals, and medicines that we need right here in America. The pharmaceutical companies are going to become roaring back. They're coming roaring back. They're all coming back to our country, because if they don't, they got a big tax to pay. And if they do, I'll be very happy, and you're going to be very happy, and you're going to be very safe. We're going to build our future with American hands, with American heart, American steel, and we're going to build it with American pride like we used to. We're approaching our 100th day as president, and have been given credit by a lot of people, actually, even some of the fake news. Can you believe it? Which in this case hopefully isn't fake, for having done more in that time than any other administration in the history of our country in the first 100 days. I think we've had an amazing, in terms of what we've done, what we've gotten accomplished. I'd like to see if we can get that war ended. And
why not just like a small tariff? Like, I don't understand. Why not like a kind of a small tariff that you can implement that'll help us like reduce the debt? Like, why such a drastic tariff on everybody? Why not be like, oh, we're going to do a 5% flat tariff on every other country on things coming in here so we could help pay down the debt? Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense, right? Something small, nothing massively disruptive that could be catastrophic to our economy. Because, you know, that's not, I don't know if you guys know this, it's kind of bad when you have any catastrophic changes to things. So that would be like the logic there. Like, oh, okay. Jesus, fuck.
Another war from not starting in the Middle East. We have to get Russia. They're losing 2,000 on average, 2,500 people today, young people, good. Soldiers, Russian. Think of that, 2,500 through some days, but on average, probably over about a 1 week period, it's 2,712. They say they're losing those soldiers. They're dying. They're being decimated. And
why do I care about Russian soldiers that are trying to infringe on the fucking autonomy of another country? The fuck do I care about that? It means absolutely nothing to me.
From our country, but they're from other countries, but they're human beings. They're from Russia. They're from Ukraine in this period, most of them. And we're going to get it stopped. It's a senseless war that would have never happened if I was president, and it shouldn't be allowed to go on. Okay, well, it happened, you know, it was going on under your presidency. You didn't do shit to stop it, and now you're just pushing Russian propaganda like fucking Ukraine started the war. And that fucking Zelensky's a dictator, so I don't know what you're talking about. And I think we're being given good cooperation by Russia and by Ukraine, but we have to get it stopped. It's crazy because it's so interesting because Trump absolutely said that like Zelensky was a dictator and started the war, and that like, you know, approval ratings were low, and he didn't say any of this about Russia, despite the fact that Russia was the one that started the war. And now, if you notice in his speeches, he's pretty tame about what he says. He doesn't say that anymore. He says like pretty reasonable stuff, kind of. In my opinion, it's still too lackadaisical onto Russia. They should be going harder on it, being much more like heavily enforcing the fact that Russia did invade Ukraine a decade ago and has violated 25 ceasefires. But we don't, it's either way, the rhetoric isn't as strong anymore. And you'd see that as a good thing, except for his entire base is still shitting and farting about how horrible Ukraine is and about how it's a dictatorship. And so it's been successful. Donald Trump was able to lie about Ukraine and try to, you know, smooth over Russia, trying to make it seem like they didn't do something like horrifically wrong. And now he just sounds reasonable, even though people are still fucking regurgitating the shit coming out of those fucking, like, that's moron's mouth previously. It's fucking crazy. It's humanity. It's humanity. It's a terrible thing. This will be a very big moment. I think you're going to remember today. It's going to be a free nation that we're dealing with. We're going to have a very free and beautiful nation. It's going to be Liberation Day in America, and it's going to be a day that hopefully you're going to look back in years to come and you're going to say, you know, he was right. This has turned out to be one of the most important days in the history of our country. God bless you and God bless America. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. So there you have it, President Trump in the Rose Garden at the White House on what he has dubbed Liberation Day when it comes to the economy. He has announced reciprocal tariffs against countries all over the world. He has said basically what we are going to do is reciprocal tariffs charge countries what they charge us to sell our products in their countries. And instead of charging them exactly what they charge us in his words, and we have to take his numbers for what they are at this moment, that the U.S. will charge half as much as what other countries are doing for us. And he gave a litany of examples. He said China, and this is the number calculated by the White House, they charge 67% in tariffs on American goods and other charges. So the U.S. will now charge 34%. The EU, our allies, he says they rip us off. He says they charge about 39% in tariffs and other charges. We will charge them now about half that, 20%. They went down the list of a number of countries. He said Vietnam, our allies, he said I like them, but they charge us 90%. We'll charge them about half that and about 40% for items coming here. He said for the rest of the countries that he did not list actual numbers for, there'll be a broad baseline of a 10% reciprocal tariff on any products that they're trying to send to the U.S. to sell here. And of course, we know U.S. businesses then pick up those costs here, and then many economists, of course, have said over a period of many weeks here that then those costs are passed on to the consumer. As he signs this into law, I want to bring in our chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, tracking this with me right here at the desk
in New York. And Rebecca, again, bottom line of 10% reciprocal tariffs on all countries, and you listed specific numbers for China, the EU, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, India, and a number of other countries. It would seem, because these numbers are sort of differing from country to country, that there might be some wiggle room here moving forward.
Well, the negotiation that could happen going forward is certainly on the table here, and he even sort of opened the door to that as he was talking to the audience there, saying we can have conversations with these foreign countries. But the big headline here is that this is based on the White House's math, but these are very high numbers: a 34% tariff on China, 20% tariff on the EU, 26% on India, and that 10% minimum. That's not insignificant.
Let's go to Rachel Scott right there in the Rose Garden. Rachel, the temperature there in the garden. She's standing by for us momentarily. Mary Bruce is on the other side of the White House. Mary, as Rebecca says, these are historic tariffs not seen at this level, at quick math here, since the early 1900s. This would be an extraordinary shift, and we did not hear a lot from the president about any immediate impact on the American consumer, the customer who goes to the grocery store, the mall, the auto lot to buy a car. We didn't hear a lot of detail about what the initial impact would be here.
No, we didn't. Look, the president is adamant that these tariffs are going to boost the U.S. economy, that it's going to spur a renaissance in American manufacturing, but economists have warned that that takes time, that it could be months or even years to boost production on American soil. And in the meantime, they say American consumers are going to bear the brunt of this. The costs are going to skyrocket. The president didn't touch on that.
I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense. That it's going to take our, even if this is a good idea, it's going to take us quite a transitionary period, because we simply don't have the infrastructure to manufacture in America right now. And so this is why you don't run the country like a business, because we can't just flip on a dime. We can't shut down for 6 months or a year while we build more factories and occupy more factories. We have to suck a fat dick. It would have made more sense to do this transition over a period of like a year or two. And then maybe it would have been more reasonable. Like, hey, we're going to incentivize the production of more factories in America. And while we do that, we're going to slowly elevate tariffs on things so that it's not a system shock. But instead, we're apparently getting massive tariffs from other countries. So, yeah, that'll be fun, I guess. Cool beans.
That in these lengthy remarks. Now, in the past, he has said that Americans should be braced for some short-term pain. The question is, how long is that pain going to last? And when pressed on that, in recent days, the White House has said simply that Americans need to trust the president and have faith. David.
Mary Bruce, right there at the White House, at the Rose Garden. Rachel Scott also standing by. Rachel, I understand you can hear me now. There you are, with the crowd there behind you. They liked what they were hearing. Of course, the question is how our allies will respond to this around the world, our friends around the world, with these extraordinarily high tariffs that the president says are long overdue. And again, what the initial impact, when I say initial, this could be in many weeks, several months, if you will, because also economists say when bring products back to America, it's going to take quite some time before that can get up and running.
Exactly, David. And even those who are here, steel workers, auto workers, they acknowledge that while they're supportive of the president's plan, that this is not going to be like a light switch on and off, that this could take time, months and years for manufacturing ultimately to get to speed. But you heard here from the president today, he is betting that this plan will work. Of course, across the country, of course, businesses are also preparing to increase their prices for customers, David.
Rachel Scott, thanks to you. Very quickly back to Rebecca Jarvis. The Dow did close up 235 today, but you're looking at the futures already and they're reacting to
the futures, which point to what will happen tomorrow morning, and they reverse course. They are pointing much lower for tomorrow morning's open.
As the first reaction comes in on the markets, the futures, as Rebecca says, down for tomorrow based on the news here today. We're going to have our coverage continue at ABC News Live, abcnews.com. For many of you, your local news is standing by right here in the East. And of course, I'll be back here with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm David Muir in New York. Good day.
All right. Well, fuck me in the ass.